Welcome back to Punk Rock Theologian. We're making our way to commandment number 7. This is another one of the short and simple ones. In Exodus 20:14 and Deuteronomy 5:18, it simply says, you must not commit adultery. In very simple terms, this is just faithfulness, marital fidelity, which is why my old Bible school song said, number 7, life is heaven when you're true to your mate. Which is a bit of an oversimplification. It's not like simply not cheating on your spouse is going to make all of life perfect for you. As we keep seeing, if we just treat this like a limitation, something we're not allowed to do, then not only is it really missing the point, but it actually kind of cheats ourselves out of the life that he's trying to point us to. God knows that violating a marriage covenant brings painful consequences, and he's trying to spare us from that. If we can't honor and value what should be the most sacred of human relationships, then what hope is there for any of the relationships and interpersonal connections that make up society? Just like last week, this is another one that Jesus touched on in the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew 5:27-28, he says, you have heard the commandment that says you must not commit adultery. But I say, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Just like with murder, he's saying it's not about just not committing the physical act, but if that's what's in your head, if that's what's in your heart, then you're already there. You see, in the beginning, God created a husband and a wife. There's this interesting line in Genesis 2:24 that it says, this explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. That's a really weird line to have when the only people on the planet are Adam and Eve. Neither of them has a father or mother. They're not leaving anyone, but God is calling them a husband and a wife. The New Testament refers back to that specific verse multiple times. Both Jesus and Paul use that as like an anchor point for what marriage is. Taking it clear back to God's original creation before anything went wrong, before sin entered the world. One of the many times religious leaders tried to confront Jesus and trick him with questions and stuff was about marriage and divorce. Matthew 19 and Mark 10 both have the same story. I'm going to give you the version from Matthew, starting at verse 3. Some Pharisees came and tried to trap him with this question. Should a man be allowed to divorce his wife for just any reason? Haven't you read the scriptures? Jesus replied. Which is hilarious. That's like going to LeBron James and saying, have you ever played basketball? Or asking Steven Spielberg if he's ever seen a movie. Like, this is what these guys did. The reading the scriptures, knowing the scriptures, that was their whole thing. And he's making fun of them. Like, do you even read, bro? They record that from the beginning, God made them male and female. And he said, and this explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. Since they are no longer two but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together. But it looks like they did kind of anticipate that because they had a follow-up response to it. Then why did Moses say, in the law, that a man could give his wife a certificate of divorce and send her away? They asked. Jesus replied, Moses permitted divorce only as a concession to your hard hearts. But it was not what God had originally intended. And I tell you this, whoever divorces his wife and marries someone else commits adultery, unless his wife has been unfaithful. I have to take a quick side note here because this verse has been used to beat people over the head for hundreds of years, and that's stupid. The sad truth is that divorce does happen. And it's not like a person who is divorced is just thrown away and no longer can serve any purpose and can never be married and experience companionship and love ever again in their life. Jesus is addressing their jacked up teaching that basically whenever they saw someone else that they wanted, they'd just toss out the first wife and grab another one and go, well, no, see, I'm married. I'm doing everything right. It's by the law. And Jesus is saying, no, that's stupid. Don't think that just because you go through the little ceremonies and you dot the I's and cross the T's, that you're actually honoring each other in any way. And that's the point of the commandment. That's what this all comes back to. When he says, do not commit adultery, it's about honoring the value of a relationship. The thing is that human love has limits. Far too many of us have experienced those limits firsthand, causing us to question the authenticity of love and even the possibility of genuine commitment. God is fully aware of our limits, and yet he requires us to stay faithful in marriage. Such a contradiction would be completely unfair, except that just like we've seen with other commandments, he never intended us to be able to do this on our own. I really think that's half the point of this. He's showing us our own weakness and our inability to do it, and proving our need of him. Only the unconditional love of God can perpetually overcome the offenses that inevitably occur in any relationship. That's why 1 John 3:16 says, we know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we also ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. And that's why my personal declaration on this one is I demonstrate God's love, not my own. I lay down my life to serve my family, and I seek out opportunities to show God's love to my neighbors. Just like we looked at last week, take the opposite of this command. What would the life look like where adultery could not happen? It's a life that is purely giving sacrificial love. That's the kind of love God is offering. That's the kind of love that He wants to provide to us to flow through us to each other. As with all of God's commands, this isn't limited just to the people who happen to be married. It's not like you have to check that box to be eligible for the benefits that come from living God's way. When our lives and relationships are fueled by God's love, the people in our lives can be spared from suffering the effects of our own limitations. We all get to live in a much better world when we demonstrate His love, not our own.